The sun was setting over New Horizon City, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The city buzzed with life. Hovercars zipped through the air, neon signs blinked on towering skyscrapers, and robots walked alongside humans, carrying groceries or delivering packages. It was a world where technology ruled everything, from homes to schools to workplaces. People trusted machines more than they trusted each other. Claire stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the straps of her dress. She smiled at her reflection. Today was one of the happiest days of her life, or so she thought. In just 2 weeks, she would marry Adrian Voss, the most successful man in the galaxy. Handsome, rich, and charming, Adrian seemed too good to be true. And for Claire, he was the answer to all her dreams. Her teenage daughter, Leila, leaned against the doorframe, watching her mom with narrowed eyes. At 15, Leila was smart, curious, and full of questions. But lately, those questions had been about Adrian. Something about him didn't sit right with her. She couldn't explain it, but every time she looked at him, she felt uneasy. Mom, Lila said, breaking the silence. Are you sure about this? Claire turned to face her daughter. Her smile faltered for a moment before returning brighter than ever. Of course I'm sure. Why wouldn't I be? Adrian loves me, and I love him. We're going to have such a wonderful life together. Leela crossed her arms. I don't know. He's just different. Like not normal different. We're different. Claire chuckled softly. That's because he's extraordinary. He's done so much for us already. Remember how he helped us move into that new apartment? Or how he paid for your school fees without even asking? Leela frowned. Yes, Adrian had done those things. But kindness wasn't always proof of goodness. She'd read enough stories about villains who pretended to be heroes. Still, she didn't want to upset her mom. So instead of arguing, she shrugged. Okay, if you say so. But deep down, Leela knew she needed answers. Over the next few days, she decided to investigate Adrian herself. She started small, observing him whenever he visited their home. At first glance, he seemed perfect. He laughed at Claire's jokes, brought gifts for Leila, and talked about his plans for their future family. Yet there were moments when his smile didn't reach his eyes, or when his voice turned cold during phone calls. Those little cracks in his polished exterior made Leila even more suspicious. One evening, while Claire was busy cooking dinner, Adrian left his tablet on the coffee table. His phone buzzed constantly, lighting up with notifications. Curiosity got the better of Leila. She glanced toward the kitchen to make sure her mom wasn't looking, then picked up the device. The screen was locked. But Leila remembered seeing Adrian type in his password once. With trembling fingers, she entered the code, 815. The screen unlocked instantly. What she saw made her heart race. Files upon files filled the tablet, labeled with strange names like Project Hybrid and Phase 3 testing. There were photos of labs, diagrams of human bodies connected to wires, and notes about something called neural integration. None of it made sense, but one thing was clear. Adrian was hiding something big. Before she could dig deeper, the sound of footsteps approaching snapped her out of her trance. Panicking, Leila quickly closed the tablet and placed it back on the table. By the time Adrian returned, she was sitting innocently on the couch, scrolling through her own phone. Everything okay? Adrian asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, Lila replied, forcing a smile. Just bored. Adrian nodded but gave her a long look before heading to the kitchen to join Claire. Leila exhaled sharply, her mind racing. What had she stumbled upon? Was Adrian involved in some kindlicity experiment, or worse? Over the next few days, Leila tried to piece together what she'd seen. She searched online for terms like neural integration and hybrid testing, but most of the results were too technical for her to understand. Frustrated, she confided in her best friend Zane. Zane was a tech genius. At 13, he could hack into almost anything, from school computers to government databases. When Leila told him about Adrian's tablet, his eyes lit up with excitement. You found secret files? Zane whispered, leaning closer. That's epic. Let's break them open and see what's inside. But we can't get caught, Leila warned. If Adrian finds out, he'll know I snooped around. Don't worry, Zane assured her. I'll cover our tracks. Just give me access to his system, and I'll handle the rest. That night, Leila snuck into Adrian's office while he was hosting a party downstairs. She plugged a tiny USB drive into his computer, a device Zane had prepared for her. Within seconds, the drive copied all the data onto itself. Heart pounding, Leila slipped out of the room unnoticed. Back at Zane's house, the two friends huddled over his computer, analyzing the stolen files. What they discovered shocked them to their core. Adrian wasn't entirely human. According to the documents, Adrian was part of an experimental program that combined human DNA with advanced robotics. His body was enhanced with machine parts, making him stronger, faster, and smarter than any ordinary person. But that wasn't the worst part. The files revealed that Adrian planned to use Claire's genetic material to create more hybrids like himself. These hybrids would be under his control, forming an army of superhumans loyal only to him. Leela felt sick to her stomach. How could someone so charming and generous be capable of such evil? And what did this mean for her mom? She wanted to confront Adrian right away, but Zane stopped her. You need proof, he said firmly. Something undeniable, otherwise no one will believe you. So Leela waited, biding her time until the perfect moment arrived. 2 weeks later, the day of the wedding finally came. The venue was breathtaking, a floating space station orbiting Earth, decorated with glowing flowers and holographic displays. Guests mingled happily, sipping champagne and admiring the view of the planet below. As Claire walked down the aisle in her white gown, Leela clenched her fists. She knew she had to act fast. This might be her last chance to save her mom, and possibly the entire world, from Adrian's dark plans. Little did anyone know the real drama was about to begin. The day after Leela and Zane uncovered Adrian's secret files, Leela woke up feeling like her world had been turned upside down. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything she'd learned. Adrian wasn't just some rich, charming guy. He was part machine, part human. And worse, he planned to use her mom's DNA to create an army of superhuman hybrids under his control. Why does he want Mom? Leela whispered to herself. What makes her so special? She didn't have answers yet, but one thing was clear. She couldn't let the wedding happen. If Adrian married Claire, it would give him unlimited access to her genetic material, and that could lead to disaster. But how could Leela stop him without proof? Who would believe a 15-year-old girl over a powerful man like Adrian? Leela decided to talk to Zane again. He always had ideas, even when things seemed impossible. She grabbed her phone and sent him a quick message. We need to meet. Now. Zane lived nearby, in a small apartment filled with gadgets and wires. When Leela arrived, he was already sitting at his desk, typing furiously on his computer. His room looked like a mix between a tech lab and a teenager's messy bedroom. Posters of robots and spaceships covered the walls, and half-empty soda cans littered the floor. You okay? Zane asked, noticing the worried look on Leela's face. I don't know, Leela admitted. I mean, we found out what Adrian's planning, but now what? How do we stop him? Zane leaned back in his chair thinking. First, we need more evidence. Something concrete. People won't care about vague theories or stolen files. They'll call it fake news. We need undeniable proof. But where do we find that? Leela asked. Zane grinned mischievously. Adrian's assistant, Eco-7. Leela blinked. The robot? Yeah, Zane said. Think about it. Eco-7 is probably connected to all of Adrian's systems. If we can hack into its memory bank, we might find videos, recordings, or documents proving what he's doing. Leela hesitated. Won't that be dangerous? What if Eco-7 catches us? That's why we'll be sneaky, Zane replied confidently. Leave it to me. Later that evening, Leela and Zane put their plan into action. The rehearsal dinner for the wedding was being held at Adrian's mansion, a sprawling estate surrounded by high-tech security cameras and drones. But Zane had prepared for this. He carried a small device designed to jam electronic signals temporarily, giving them a window to move undetected. Dressed casually to blend in with the catering staff, Leela and Zane slipped inside the mansion. They avoided eye contact with guests and focused on finding Eco-7. After a few minutes of searching, they spotted the robot standing near the buffet table, serving drinks with robotic precision. There, Leela whispered, pointing. Stay close, Zane instructed, and act natural. They approached Eco-7 cautiously. Up close, the robot looked almost human, smooth skin, lifelike eyes, and a polite smile. But something about it felt off. Its movements were too perfect, too calculated. Zane pulled out a small gadget from his pocket, a hacking tool disguised as a pen. He tapped it against Eco-7's wrist, activating a hidden port. A faint blue light blinked on the robot's arm as Zane's device began downloading its data. How long will this take? Leela asked nervously, glancing around. Not long, Zane muttered. Just stay calm. Suddenly, AT-07 froze mid-motion, its head tilting slightly to the side. For a moment, Leela thought they'd been caught. Then the robot resumed its task as if nothing had happened. Done, Zane announced, slipping the gadget back into his pocket. Let's get out of here. They hurried away from the party, heart rates racing. Once outside, they ran to Zane's apartment to analyze the data they'd stolen. Back at Zane's place, the two friends huddled over at his computer, scanning through the information extracted from ECA-07. At first, it seemed like a jumble of codes and encrypted files. But Zane worked quickly, decrypting layer after layer until they finally hit gold. On the screen appeared video footage of Adrian's secret lab. Rows of pods lined the walls, each containing a humanoid figure suspended in liquid. Some figures were clearly alive, their eyes flickering open occasionally. Others looked incomplete, with exposed wires and mechanical parts sticking out of their bodies. "Oh my God," Leela gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "This is insane," Zane murmured. "These are the hybrids he's creating, half human, half machine." But the worst part came next. As they continued watching, they saw Adrian himself speaking directly to the camera. In the recording, he explained his vision for the future, a world ruled by his hybrids, loyal only to him. He talked about using Claire's DNA to create the ultimate hybrid, someone who would surpass all others in strength, intelligence, and obedience. He's going to turn Mom into one of them, Leela realized, her voice trembling. He's not marrying her because he loves her. He's marrying her because she's useful. Zane frowned. "This changes everything. You have to tell your mom." "No way," Leela shook her head. "She won't believe me. She thinks Adrian's perfect. I need solid proof, something she can't ignore." Zane nodded. "Then we'll show her. During the wedding." Leela stared at him. "You mean expose him in front of everyone?" "Exactly," Zane said firmly. "It's risky, but it's the only way. Once people see this footage, there's no denying what he's done." Over the next few days, Leela and Zane prepared for the big reveal. They edited the video footage into a short clip, making sure it was easy to understand even for someone unfamiliar with the details. They also tested Zane's EMP, electromagnetic pulse device, which would disable all electronics, including ECA-07, if things got out of hand. Meanwhile, Leela struggled with guilt. She hated lying to her mom, pretending everything was fine while secretly plotting to ruin the wedding. But she reminded herself why she was doing this. It wasn't just about saving Claire. It was about stopping Adrian before he could hurt anyone else. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. The floating space station buzzed with excitement as guests gathered for the ceremony. Holographic displays shimmered above the crowd, showing images of Earth below. Claire looked stunning in her white gown, glowing with happiness as she walked down the aisle toward Adrian. Leela stood near the back, clutching a small projector in her hands. Her heart pounded as she waited for the right moment. When the priest asked, "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Leila stepped forward. "Wait," she shouted, her voice echoing across the venue. Everyone turned to look at her, surprised. "What are you doing, Leila?" Claire asked, confused. "I'm sorry, Mom," Leila said, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I can't let you marry him. Not after what I found out." Before anyone could react, Leela activated the projector. Giant holograms filled the room, showing the video footage of Adrian's lab and his confession about creating hybrids. Gasps rippled through the crowd as people watched in shock. Adrian's face darkened with anger. "Turn that off," he barked, turning to ECA-07. "Now." But Zane had anticipated this. With a press of a button, he triggered the EMP device. All the electronics in the room shut down instantly, including ECA-07, which collapsed to the ground like a lifeless statue. Chaos erupted as guests screamed and ran for the exits. Adrian lunged toward Leila, but Zane stepped in front of her protectively. "Don't even think about it," he warned. Claire stared at the holograms, her expression shifting from disbelief to horror. "Is this true?" she demanded, looking at Adrian. "Tell me it's not real." Adrian hesitated, then sighed heavily. "Fine," he admitted, his voice cold. "It's true, but you wouldn't understand the bigger picture, Claire. This is for the greater good." "The greater good?" Claire repeated, her voice shaking. "You lied to me. You used me." With tears streaming down her face, she took a step back, distancing herself from him. Meanwhile, Leila dialed emergency services on her phone. "Hello? Yes, we need help. There's a dangerous man here. Send authorities immediately." As security guards rushed in to detain Adrian, Leila hugged her mom tightly. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted to protect you. Claire hugged her back, still processing everything. Thank you, she said softly, for saving me. The truth was out, and Adrian's empire began to crumble. While authorities dealt with him, Leela and Claire held onto each other, ready to face whatever came next, together. The morning of the wedding started like any other big day, full of excitement, nerves, and last-minute preparations. Claire woke up early, her heart racing as she looked at herself in the mirror. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She was marrying Adrian Voss, the man who had swept her off her feet with his charm, wealth, and promises of a bright future. But something felt off. Claire couldn't put her finger on it, but there was a nagging feeling deep in her gut. Maybe it was because Leela had been acting strange lately. Her daughter had been distant, distracted, and unusually quiet. Claire tried to brush it off as teenage moodiness, but the unease lingered. Meanwhile, Leela was wide awake, pacing back and forth in her room. She had spent the past few days preparing for this moment, rehearsing what she would say and how she would expose Adrian's dark secrets. She knew it wouldn't be easy. Ruining her mom's wedding in front of hundreds of guests wasn't exactly the kind of thing you did lightly. But Leela didn't have a choice. If she didn't act now, it would be too late. Zane texted her early that morning, ready for the big reveal. Leela stared at the message, her hands trembling slightly. As ready as I'll ever be, she muttered under her breath. The venue for the wedding was breathtaking, a floating space station orbiting Earth, decorated with glowing flowers, shimmering lights, and holographic displays. Guests arrived in sleek hover cars, dressed in their finest outfits. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as everyone prepared to witness the union of two seemingly perfect people. Inside the main hall, rows of chairs faced a grand stage overlooking the vast expanse of space. A giant window offered a stunning view of Earth below, its blue oceans and swirling clouds making the scene feel almost magical. Everything seemed picture perfect, except for the storm brewing beneath the surface. Leela stood near the back of the room, clutching a small projector in her pocket. Her heart pounded as she watched her mom walk down the aisle in a beautiful white gown, smiling nervously at Adrian. He stood tall and confident, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. To everyone else, he looked like the ideal groom. But Leela knew better. You're not fooling anyone, she whispered to herself. As the ceremony began, the priest spoke about love, commitment, and unity. Leela tuned out most of it, focusing instead on her plan. She glanced at Zane, who was sitting a few rows away, pretending to be just another guest. His backpack contained the EMP device they'd built together, an insurance policy in case things went wrong. When the priest finally asked, "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Leela stepped forward before Claire could answer. Wait, Leela shouted, her voice echoing through the hall. Everyone turned to look at her, startled. What are you doing, Leela? Claire asked, her face pale with confusion. I'm sorry, Mom, Leela said, tears welling up in her eyes. But I can't let you marry him. Not after what I found out. Before anyone could react, Leela pulled out the projector and activated it. Giant holograms filled the room, showing video footage of Adrian's secret lab. The crowd gasped as they saw rows of pods containing humanoid figures suspended in liquid. Some were alive, their eyes flickering open occasionally. Others looked incomplete, with exposed wires and mechanical parts sticking out of their bodies. This is what Adrian's been working on, Leela explained, her voice shaking but determined. He's creating hybrids, part human, part machine. And he plans to use Mom's DNA to make more of them. He's not marrying her because he loves her. He's marrying her because she's useful. Adrian's face twisted with anger. Turn that off, he barked, turning to EC-807, his assistant robot. Now. But Zane had anticipated this. With a press of a button, he triggered the EMP device hidden in his backpack. All the electronics in the room shut down instantly, including EC-807, which collapsed to the ground like a lifeless statue. Chaos erupted as guests screamed and ran for the exits. Adrian lunged toward Leela, his eyes blazing with fury. You little brat, he snarled. Do you have any idea what you've done? Zane stepped in front of Leela protectively. Don't even think about it, he warned, holding up a small gadget. One wrong move, and I'll fry everything in this room, including you. Adrian hesitated, realizing he was outnumbered. For a moment, no one moved. Then Claire stepped forward, her expression shifting from shock to rage. Is this true? She demanded, glaring at Adrian. Tell me it's not real. Adrian sighed heavily, his charming mask slipping away completely. Fine, he admitted, his voice cold. It's true, but you wouldn't understand the bigger picture, Claire. This is for the greater good. The greater good, Claire repeated, her voice shaking. You lied to me. You used me. With tears streaming down her face, she took a step back, distancing herself from him. Meanwhile, Leela dialed emergency services on her phone. Hello? Yes, we need help. There's a dangerous man here. Send authorities immediately. As security guards rushed in to detain Adrian, Leela hugged her mom tightly. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted to protect you. Claire hugged her back, still processing everything. Thank you, she said softly, for saving me. While the authorities dealt with Adrian, Leela and Claire held onto each other, ready to face whatever came next, together. The once perfect wedding had turned into a nightmare, but in exposing the truth, Leela had saved her mom, and possibly countless others, from a fate worse than death. Outside the space station, the stars twinkled brightly against the blackness of space. Despite the chaos, Leela felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had done the right thing, no matter how hard it had been. And as she looked at her mom, she knew they would get through this, together. The space station was in chaos. Guests screamed as they scrambled toward the exits, desperate to escape the unfolding drama. Security guards swarmed the area, trying to restore order while detaining Adrian. But even in handcuffs, Adrian wasn't giving up without a fight. His eyes burned with fury as he glared at Leela and Claire. You think this is over? Adrian spat, his voice icy. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Leela tightened her grip on her mom's hand. She could feel Claire trembling beside her, overwhelmed by everything that had just happened. Despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins, Leela knew they weren't safe yet. Adrian still had one last card to play, and she was certain it wouldn't be pretty. Mom, Leela whispered urgently, we need to leave. Now. Claire nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. Together, they followed the crowd toward the exit, but before they could reach it, an alarm blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, bathing the room in an eerie glow. What's happening? Someone shouted. Adrian smirked, his lips curling into a sinister grin. Initiating failsafe protocol, he announced loudly, his voice cutting through the panic. In 10 minutes, this station will self-destruct. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People froze, unsure whether to believe him or not. But Leela didn't waste time doubting. She'd seen enough of Adrian's files to know he wasn't bluffing. If anything, this was exactly the kind of ruthless move he'd planned for situations like this. We need to stop him, Leela exclaimed, turning to Zane. Do you have any way to shut this down? Zane frowned, pulling out his tablet. I can try hacking into the system, but it'll take time, and we don't have much of it. Adrian laughed coldly. You underestimated me, girl. My systems are impenetrable. There's nothing you can do. Leela clenched her fists. She refused to let him win. Not after everything they'd been through. There's always a way, she muttered under her breath. Turning to Zane, she added, we need to get to his private shuttle. That's where the controls for the failsafe must be. Zane nodded. Got it. Let's go. The three of them, Leela, Claire, and Zane, raced through the corridors of the space station, dodging panicked guests and security guards along the way. The air felt tense, every second ticking away like a countdown to disaster. Layla's heart pounded as she led the group toward the docking bay where Adrian's personal shuttle was located. When they arrived, they found Adrian already there, attempting to board the ship. He turned sharply when he heard their footsteps, his expression darkening. You again, he growled. Don't you ever give up? Not when you're threatening innocent people, Layla shot back, stepping forward bravely. Call off the failsafe, Adrian. It's over. Adrian chuckled bitterly. It's never over. Even if I die here today, my work will live on. Humanity needs evolution, whether they like it or not. No one asked for your twisted version of evolution, Lila snapped. You're just a power-hungry monster. For a moment, Adrian looked genuinely surprised by her words. Then his expression hardened again. Fine, he said. If you're so determined to play hero, let's see how far you're willing to go. With that, he lunged toward the shuttle's control panel, pressing buttons rapidly. Alarms sounded louder, and the countdown timer appeared on a nearby screen. 9:32. He activated it. Zane yelled, We need to override the system. Claire stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. Let me handle him. You two focus on stopping the failsafe. Before anyone could protest, Claire charged at Adrian, surprising him with her sudden burst of courage. She tackled him to the ground, struggling to hold him back. Adrian fought back fiercely, his mechanical enhancements making him stronger than an ordinary human. "Mom, be careful," Lila shouted, torn between helping her mom and focusing on the task at hand. "I'm fine," Claire insisted, gritting her teeth as she wrestled Adrian. "Just hurry." Lila nodded, forcing herself to focus. She and Zane rushed inside the shuttle, searching for the main control console. The interior was sleek and futuristic, filled with glowing panels and touchscreens. Zane immediately got to work, typing furiously on his tablet as he connected it to the ship's system. "Can you disable the failsafe?" Leela asked anxiously. "It's complicated," Zane replied, sweat dripping down his forehead. "His encryption is insane. I've never seen anything like it." "Well, you better figure it out fast," Leela urged. "We don't have 9 minutes left to spare." Outside, Claire continued her struggle with Adrian. Despite his strength, she managed to knock him off balance, slamming him against the wall. Her determination gave her an edge, fueled by anger and fear for her daughter's safety. "You won't hurt her," Claire growled, pinning him down. "Not my daughter. Not anyone else." Adrian sneered. "You're too late, Claire. This station will explode, and your precious little girl will die along with everyone else. Your sacrifice will mean nothing." Claire hesitated for a split second, doubt creeping into her mind. But then she remembered Leela's bravery, the way she had risked everything to protect her. Drawing strength from that memory, Claire tightened her grip on Adrian. "Maybe," she said softly, "but at least I'll know I tried." Inside the shuttle, Zane cursed under his breath as lines of code scrolled across his screen. "This isn't working," he admitted. "His failsafe is tied to the entire station's core. Disabling it remotely is impossible." Leela's stomach dropped. "Then what do we do?" Zane paused, thinking quickly. Then his eyes lit up. "Wait, I have an idea. Remember the EMP device? If we trigger it directly at the core, it might reset the system long enough to stop the countdown." "But the core is in the engineering bay," Leela pointed out. "That's on the other side of the station." "We'll have to run," Zane said firmly. "It's our only chance." Without hesitation, Leela grabbed the EMP device and sprinted out of the shuttle. Zane followed close behind, leaving Claire to continue her fight with Adrian. As they raced through the station, the countdown loomed over them, 5:47. They reached the engineering bay just as the timer hit 4:23. Inside, they found the massive core glowing ominously, its hum growing louder with each passing second. Zane quickly set up the EMP device, calibrating it to target the core specifically. "This is it," Zane said, flipping the final switch. "Hold on tight." A deafening buzz filled the room as the EMP activated, sending a surge of energy through the station. For a brief moment, everything went dark. The lights, the alarms, the screens. Then slowly the systems rebooted. Zane checked the countdown timer, 0 o'clock. "It worked," he breathed, relief washing over him. "We stopped it." Leela collapsed onto the floor, laughing and crying at the same time. They had done it. They had saved everyone. Back at the docking bay, Claire finally managed to subdue Adrian, tying him up with cables from the shuttle. When security arrived moments later, they took him into custody, ensuring he couldn't cause any more harm. As the dust settled, Leela hugged her mom tightly, grateful for their narrow escape. "You were amazing, Mom," she said, smiling through her tears. "So were you," Claire replied, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Thank you for saving us all." Together, they watched as the authorities escorted Adrian away, knowing that justice would finally be served. Though the day had been chaotic and terrifying, it had also brought them closer than ever before. And as they gazed out at the stars beyond the station's windows, Leela realized something important. Sometimes doing the right thing meant taking risks, even when it felt impossible. But with love, courage, and teamwork, anything was possible. The aftermath of the wedding disaster was like a storm slowly clearing away. The space station, once a scene of chaos and fear, now felt eerily quiet. Guests had been evacuated safely, and authorities had taken control of the situation. Adrian Voss, the man who had posed as a charming groom but turned out to be a dangerous villain, was finally behind bars. His empire of lies crumbled under the weight of his crimes, leaving shockwaves across the galaxy. For Claire, the days following the incident were a blur. She spent hours locked in her room, replaying everything that had happened. How could she have been so blind? How had she fallen for someone so manipulative, so cruel? The betrayal cut deep, not just because Adrian had lied to her, but because he had planned to use her for his twisted experiments. But through the pain, there was also gratitude. Gratitude for Lila, her brave and determined daughter, who had risked everything to save her. Without Lila, Claire knew she would have walked straight into Adrian's trap, blissfully unaware until it was too late. One evening, as the sun set over New Horizon City, Claire sat on the balcony of their apartment, staring at the horizon. Lila joined her, carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate. She handed one to her mom and sat down beside her. "Thanks," Claire said softly, taking a sip. "I needed this." Lila smiled faintly. "You okay?" Claire hesitated before answering. "I don't know. Part of me feels relieved, like a huge weight has been lifted. But another part," her voice trailed off, tears welling up in her eyes. "Another part feels stupid. How could I not see what he really was?" "It's not your fault, Mom," Lila replied firmly. "Adrian was good at pretending. He tricked everyone, even me, at first." Claire looked at her daughter, pride swelling in her chest. "You're amazing. You know that? You saved us all." "I didn't do it alone," Lila admitted. "Zane helped a lot. And you stood up to Adrian when it mattered most." That took guts. They sat in silence for a while, sipping their drinks and watching the city lights flicker below. For the first time in days, the air between them felt lighter, less tense. The bond they shared had grown stronger through the ordeal, forged by trust and mutual sacrifice. A few weeks later, life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as it could get after such an event. News outlets buzzed with updates about Adrian's arrest and the exposure of his illegal activities. Governments launched investigations into his company, uncovering widespread corruption and unethical practices. Laws were proposed to regulate AI development and human experimentation, ensuring nothing like this could happen again. Leela became an unexpected hero in the public eye. Interviews and news segments praised her bravery, calling her the girl who stopped a madman. At school, her classmates treated her differently, some with admiration, others with curiosity. But Lila didn't care about fame. All she cared about was protecting her mom and making sure Adrian's plans never came to fruition. Zane, too, gained recognition for his role in stopping the failsafe. His tech skills earned him a scholarship to a prestigious engineering academy, something he'd always dreamed of. Though he teased Leela about becoming famous, he remained humble, crediting their teamwork for saving the day. "You know," Zane joked during one of their video calls, "if anyone asks, I'll tell them you were the brains of the operation." Leela laughed. "Yeah, right. Without your gadgets, we'd still be stuck in that shuttle." Their friendship had grown stronger through the experience, built on trust and shared adventure. They promised to stay in touch, no matter where life took them. As for Claire, she focused on rebuilding her life. She quit her job at Adrian's company, which had since been shut down, and started working as a counselor for survivors of abuse and exploitation. Helping others gave her a sense of purpose, allowing her to channel her pain into something meaningful. One afternoon, while tidying up the living room, Claire stumbled upon an old photo album. Flipping through its pages, she found pictures of happier times, family vacations, birthday celebrations, lazy Sundays spent laughing together. Seeing those memories reminded her of how far they'd come, and how much they still had to look forward to. "Hey, Mom," Lila called from the kitchen. "Can I borrow your tablet? There's something I want to show you." Curious, Claire joined her daughter at the table. On the screen was a news article about new reforms in AI ethics and bioengineering regulations. Beneath the headline was a picture of Leela speaking at a conference, advocating for stricter oversight of technology. "What do you think?" Leela asked nervously. "Do you think people will listen?" Claire smiled, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Of course they will. You've already inspired so many people. Look at everything you've done." Leela blushed, unused to praise. "I just want to make sure no one else gets hurt like we did." "And you will," Claire assured her. "You're changing the world, one step at a time." Months passed, and the scars of the past began to heal. Claire and Lila moved into a smaller apartment closer to the city center, eager to start fresh. They decorated it together, filling it with plants, books, and mementos of their journey. Every corner told a story, a reminder of how far they'd come and how much they'd overcome. On a crisp autumn morning, Lila woke up early to watch the sunrise. Standing on the rooftop of their building, she wrapped herself in a blanket and gazed at the sky. The stars were fading, giving way to streaks of orange and pink. It was a new day, a blank slate filled with endless possibilities. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Zane. "Heard you're speaking at another conference next week. Knock him dead." Leela chuckled, typing back a quick reply. Thanks, wish you were here. She put her phone away and leaned against the railing, letting the cool breeze wash over her. Life wasn't perfect. It probably never would be, but it was better than it had been. She had her mom, her friends, and a future full of hope. In the distance, a spaceship soared across the sky, leaving a trail of light behind it. Leela smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known before. No matter what challenges lay ahead, she knew she could face them, as long as she had love, courage, and the people who mattered most by her side. And as the sun rose higher, painting the world in golden hues, Leela whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning."